absolutely think the market has this wrong.
Don't sell your Bitcoin. Don't offload your valuable crypto. I'm increasing my Bitcoin holdings. I'm also picking up 6 high-quality altcoins. Why? Because the next 15 to 30 days could create millionaires. That's why. You're being deceived. We pointed this out yesterday. They want you to sell. They want you to walk away from crypto. They're capitalizing on your fear. So let's break down the 6 altcoins I'm buying and my strategy for turning them into millions. Not financial advice, just my approach. I've been in crypto full time for over 8 years. I understand the landscape better than most. So hit the like button. Share this video with one person who needs to hear this. People selling right now are making a big mistake, in my opinion. I believe the markets are set to rise significantly, and smart money agrees. Smart money isn't selling, it's buying. Why? Because you're afraid and they aren't. The most successful investors seize opportunities like this, purchasing assets at a discount during uncertain times. That's how you maximize gains. That's how you build wealth. I always pay attention when industry experts share a perspective that aligns with mine. In this case, Bitwise CIO Matt Hogan makes it clear, if you're selling or giving up on crypto right now, you're making the wrong call. Think about it.
Absolutely think the market has this wrong. You're 100% correct that the market is short-term disappointed that the government didn't come out and say it's going to immediately start acquiring 100 or 200,000 Bitcoin. It did say it will look for budget neutral ways to do so in the future. And I expect the US government to figure out a way to increase its Bitcoin stores over time. But regardless of that, I think that's the wrong question to ask. I think the right question to ask is, did this executive order make it more likely that in the future, Bitcoin will be a geopolitically important currency or asset? Will other governments look to follow the US's lead and build their own strategic reserve? And to me, the answer to that is emphatically yes. The reason that question matters is that's the question that determines if Bitcoin is, $80,000 a coin or $1 million a coin. So I think this is a short-term setback. I think the market will soon find its footing and realize that actually this is incredibly bullish long-term for this asset and for crypto as a whole.
Bitcoin is fine. Ethereum, XRP, Solana, and Cardano are fine. The blockchains are still running smoothly. The only thing happening is fear in the market. This uncertainty is temporary and will eventually shift bullish. Look at it this way. Market fear is currently at levels we last saw during the 2020 COVID-19 crash and the 2022 FTX collapse. When was the best time to buy in the last 5 years? Right at those moments. And now we're in that exact same zone. But this time, we have the most bullish crypto environment in place. The US is moving forward with a strategic Bitcoin reserve and expanding its digital asset stockpile. Make sure you're subscribed to Crypto News Flash for daily updates like this. If you've been following, you'll remember when Bitcoin dropped from 14K to 8K. The same sentiment Morgan Creek's Moresco expressed back then applies today. And I love how they joke about it at the end.
Before we go, Bitcoin was under 8,000 earlier today.
Buy it.
Regardless, though, of the drop. If I said to you Bitcoin dropped to 5,000, you'd say buy it.
Buy it. Because here's the thing. The daily price of Bitcoin doesn't matter. It's been alive for 10 years. In every year, other than one, 2015, it's made a higher low. The market cap has grown every single year. Every fundamental indicator of Bitcoin, usage, wallets, block size, transaction size, number of transactions, every single one, hash rate, making new highs. All of the indicators of the network and the network value are rising. The price of any asset fluctuates. Let's take Amazon. Amazon's been a public company for 20 years. In every year, including this year, it's at a double-digit drawdown. The average peak to trough, minus 31%. Twice, minus 90%. When was the right time to sell? Never. Who's owned it since the IPO to today? Jeff and his mom and dad. That's it.
All right. We're going to leave it there, Mark.
All right,
Good to see you.
Thanks
Thank
for
you,
having me.
Mark Yusko, Morgan Creek Capital.
Outcast.
So in my opinion, focus on assets the U.S. government is backing and including in their digital asset stockpile. American-supported coins. There's a ton of misinformation about the Bitcoin strategic reserve and digital asset stockpile. Most people don't even understand the difference. Plenty of skeptics have surfaced, claiming these initiatives are a bad idea. But the reality is, few actually grasp the details of what's unfolding. CryptoCzar, David Sachs, lays out exactly how the US will build its strategic Bitcoin reserve and digital asset holdings step by step. Most people don't dig deep enough to even comprehend this information, let alone form a solid opinion. Don't be like them. This 3-minute clip could be the difference between you becoming a millionaire or missing out. So pay close attention to this clip for a moment.
Yeah, we're not picking favorites, obviously, except I will say this. We do think Bitcoin is special, and I can get into the reasons
explain why. That's a great thing, yeah.
Well,
explain
Bitcoin's the original cryptocurrency. It's the first one. It's the only one that doesn't have an issuer, right? It's very decentralized. It's, in crypto, they call this the Immaculate Conception. We don't really know how it got here. We don't know who Satoshi is. It's almost mystical, you would say.
Yes.
It's the most valuable one. It has a $2 trillion market cap, and it's the most secure. It's never been hacked, right? So we're now, over 15 years into this journey, and there's been a lot of people who've been skeptical along the way, and there's been a lot of ups and downs, but here it is. I remember back in 2011, I think it's the first time I bought a Bitcoin. I think it was at $120. Now it's at $90,000. Again, there've been all sorts of wild swings along the way, but this thing just keeps chugging along. And you can think of that $2 trillion market cap as like a $2 trillion bug bounty. If there was a way to hack this, there's every incentive in the world. And by hack, I mean like to double spend, create basically a counterfeit Bitcoin, I guess would be the way for people to think about it. And so the security,
a miracle it hasn't been compromised. I think we can all say that.
Well, I don't know if it's a miracle. I think it's exceptional design.
Sure.
And so I think what you could say is that it's been tested in a very robust way, and there's been every incentive to basically break the encryption, and it continues to chug along. And so I think the price has gone up as the protocol has gotten more acceptance. And this is another point, is that Bitcoin is the most widely accepted as a store of value throughout the world.
Yeah.
So we do believe it should be treated special. Now, that being said, we're also creating the digital asset stockpile. So all the other digital assets.
Explain the difference between these two. So there's a digital asset stockpile. That's the picker. And then on the other side, there's a strategic reserve for Bitcoin.
So we have the reserve and we have the stockpile. So the reserve is just Bitcoin. The goal is long-term preservation. Think of it as like a digital Fort Knox for digital gold. We want to put the digital gold in there. We want to keep it secure. We never want to sell it. That's the goal of the reserve. And you're right that we've made the mistake in the past of selling this stuff. At one point in time, we had about 400,000 Bitcoin on the federal balance sheet. We sold roughly half of that for something like $360 million total. If we had held all of that, it would be worth, just that the portion we sold would be worth over 17 billion. So we made this mistake of prematurely selling Bitcoin when we should have held it. We don't want to make that mistake with regard to the rest of it. That's Bitcoin. Okay, so then you got the stockpile. Let me just talk about that. So first of all, like I said, we don't know exactly what digital assets the federal government has. I've seen reports that it might have, for example, 50,000 ETH, which is Ethereum. But again, we need to get to the bottom of that. When we figure out exactly what the assets are, we're going to move them into the digital stockpile. The purpose of the stockpile is responsible stewardship. It's a place for safekeeping. It's a centralized, you could say, account under the direction of the Secretary of the Treasury. And the Secretary of the Treasury will figure out how to maximize the values of these holdings. Now, there's a couple of important differences between stockpile and reserve. So one is the reserve, the executive order actually provides that the Secretary of the Treasury will not sell the Bitcoin. Okay, we're prohibited from selling the Bitcoin. There's no such prohibition with respect to the stockpile. If the Secretary of the Treasury decides that it's in the long-term interest of the U.S. to rebalance the portfolio or change the portfolio, the Secretary has the discretion to do that.
Okay, which makes sense because there's a long tail of crypto. We might see something that we don't have the ability to predict the future, and we don't have the staff to sit there and look at these assets every day. So maybe the decision with Ethereum is, hey, this thing's waning. We just put it into Bitcoin because we know that's the more solid one. Yeah, that's what I'm reading into it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's largely fair. I mean, look, I think that the stockpile should be subject to good portfolio management, right?
Excellent.
Unfortunately, we have a Secretary of the Treasury who is an extremely successful former hedge fund manager. So he's going to figure out the best way to manage these assets. And we give him the flexibility to do portfolio management. But the reserve is different, right? The reserve is just digital Fort Knox. Now, there's one other important difference between stockpile and reserve. So with respect to reserve, the EO provides that the secretaries, and I'm talking about Treasury and Commerce, they're allowed to figure out strategies to accumulate more Bitcoin for the reserve if those strategies are budget neutral and don't cost the taxpayer anything. Okay. So it's
Got it.
possible that we could. I'm not saying that we will, but it authorizes them to acquire more Bitcoin if they can figure out a way to do it that doesn't impact the federal budget or the deficit or taxpayers.
The FOMC meeting is approaching. Right now, the market is skeptical about Fed rate cuts, but I still expect a couple of reductions this year, possibly within the next 15 to 30 days. Obviously, Trump won't settle for just a few cuts. He'll push for more. Regardless, I believe rate cuts are coming. That's why the next 15 to 30 days could be life-changing for investors. If the market has already bottomed or is in the process of doing so, this is a golden window. Sure, you might have to wait 6 to 9 months, maybe a year, but with a long-term perspective, how can you not be bullish? With all that in mind, I'm heavily accumulating Bitcoin. I'm also stacking Ethereum, Solana, Supra, Cardano, Chainlink, and Cody. I believe we're entering a new phase for crypto, and major players are using Trump's tariff policies to spread fear, drive prices lower, and create the best buying opportunity we've seen in years. So if you're buying the dip like I am, share this video, post it on social media. I wish someone had sent me a video like this when crypto was at its lows in the past. I made today's video to give someone else that same opportunity. Friends, my name is Sam from Crypto News Flash. We cover crypto daily, so be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.